Alright, we are going to start with the stitching now. Let's go over this. We have 3 different styles that need stitching. So, what do we need for the stitching? After the keychains have their metal clips attached, the final step is to stitch them. Each of the 3 stitching methods is a bit different, so I'll explain each one in detail. For stitching, we use wax thread and needles. Let's start with the process. First, we need to measure the thread. We'll look at how much thread we need for the keychain. Now, let's measure the thread. Here's how we do it. If the stitching length is less than 30 centimeters, we wrap the thread around once, and then measure out 10 times that length. After measuring 10 times the length, we cut the thread diagonally. Once it's cut, we start threading the needle. First, we thread the wax thread through the needle. Once the thread is through, we secure it by poking the needle back through the loop of thread and pulling it tight. This creates a knot at one end. We repeat this process for the other end as well. Now both ends are secured. Next, we begin stitching. Let's take a look at how we stitch this keychain. We start by passing the needle through both layers of leather from bottom to top and pull it tight. Then, we make sure both threads coming from the 2 needles are of equal length. Next, we take the top thread and pass it back through the same hole from bottom to top again. If the thread isn't straight, we can use the needle to adjust it. Once it's straight, we pull it tight. That completes the first stitch. For the second stitch, we use the top thread's needle and pass it through the next hole from below. This creates an alternating pattern of stitches from top to bottom. We keep the thread direction consistent, ensuring the stitches look neat and tidy. If the direction changes, the stitching might look messy, which isn't aesthetically pleasing. We continue stitching all the way to the last stitch. Now, go ahead and finish this part yourself. After completing the final stitch, we pass the needle between the two layers of leather and pull it tight. We do the same on the other side. Making sure to tuck the thread back into the leather. Once it's tucked in, we cut off any excess thread, hiding it between the layers of leather. And there you have it, the keychain is complete. Alright, let's move on to stitching these two sections together. We need to stitch them one stitch at a time. For example, for a very short thread, we measure it 6 times its length. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. After measuring 6 times, we still cut the thread diagonally using the same method. Then we thread the needle. Now, let's start stitching. Let's take a look at how to assemble the wallet. The middle part is the card holder. The row of holes in the back aligns with the corresponding row of holes in the back, and the outer row of holes aligns with the outer row. Let's demonstrate the stitching method for this section. First, we pass the needle through both layers of leather from the same hole. Then we pull both needles together to tighten the stitch. This completes the first hole. For the second stitch, we again stitch from top to bottom with the upper needle going down and the lower needle coming up. If you pull the thread upwards, keep pulling it upwards to ensure the stitches are neat. For the next stitch, follow the same method and pull the thread tight. Now we are at the last stitch. Pass the needle from top to bottom. Then from bottom to top for the lower needle. Once the last stitch is done, return the needle to the previous stitch to keep the threads parallel. Similarly, pass the lower needle back through the second to last stitch. If the threads cross, use the needle to adjust them so they remain parallel. Finally, cut off the excess thread. This completes the wallet stitching. Next, fold it over and sew the back row of stitches. Once this row is complete, the wallet is finished. Now let's sew the bracelet. First, measure the distance between stitches. The thread should be more than 30 centimeters long. Here we take 5 times the length. Measure and cut the thread accordingly. Thread the needle and start sewing by inserting the needle into any point. Pull both threads to equal lengths. The stitching method for the bracelet is the same as for the wallet. The upper needle goes down and the lower needle comes up. Continue this until the last stitch. Pass the upper needle down and the lower needle back up. To secure it, go back 2 stitches with both needles. Finally, cut off the excess thread. And the bracelet is complete. Lastly, let's finish the bookmark and leather cord. Pass the leather cord through the hole in the bookmark, pull it out to your desired length, and cut it. You can tie a knot to secure it near the end, or make a fixed knot closer to the tail end. This keeps it from moving. Adjust the length of the cord as needed, and the bookmark is now complete.